All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our third educational series out of the four-part series. I'd like to start first off with just a couple housekeeping items. Please do keep yourselves on mute throughout the presentations. You can put questions in the chat at any time. We'll be monitoring those and answering them as we go along. Or at the end, we'll open it up for questions, and you can either use the chat or unmute yourself and ask the questions, whichever you would prefer. I also want to give a big thanks to Axia Cooperative and Ken Heckman for sponsoring the educational series and allowing us to bring these to everyone at no cost this year. So thank you, Ken. Ken's on the line, and if anybody has any questions afterwards for Ken or specifically about Axia Co-op, please do reach out to us in the chat as well, and we can get those questions answered by Ken. So thanks again to Axia. We've got two presentations today. We're going to talk about Criterion 7, which is eProcurement automated technology. That's going to be presented by Philip Ellison and Brandon Harper. And then we're also going to be covering Criterion 16, Cooperative Procurement Strategy. That'll be presented by April Pay and Blake Skiles. So we're going to start with Criterion 7. I'm going to hand it over to Philip and Brandon. Go ahead, take it away, guys, and I'll monitor the chat for any questions.
To reiterate, Brian, we appreciate you joining us today to learn a little bit more about Criterion 7 and how it benefits your agency. So we wanted to cover a few things today, just an overview of the criteria, 7A, B, and C, why it's the best practice for an agency, changes from previous years, the AEP certified systems, which is brand new to this year, so we can answer any questions you have about that. And then we'll go at the end and review a few model submittals. So one of the goals of this criterion is to show that your agency is utilizing technology and automating processes. That's a best practice because it saves money, time, it gives you audit capabilities, better oversight and control. So one of the few things that this criteria focuses on is the automatic requisition to PO. That being automated saves a lot of time. You can route through approvals and have it change status. One of the things we look for is that it is electronic. There are some systems that you can still do it manually through the approval process, so it needs to be automatic. Some of the other things that we look for is how it improves customer service, because it allows customers, an automated system generally will have a history, will have automated notifications. So this allows end using departments to come in and review the status of their orders, follow up, allows you to communicate with them to bring in missing items or to check on compliance.
And Brandon, that's a really good point. In judging this criteria, we've noticed that in multiple submittals for this award, there have been several entities that have not responded to this criterion, meaning that there's still public entities out there that don't have electronic purchase order systems. And so that being a best practice and us being, making sure that the entities that are submitting for this award do utilize this system, we want to make sure that that those systems are in place. So definitely one of the best practice as well as best in class.
And we understand that sometimes with the smaller agencies, cost can be a deterrent for purchasing a system like this. But there are a lot of various options out there that give you quite a few capabilities. And I do think that this is one of the few things that you can change, and it pays dividends. for your staff as far as time and compliance and audit oversight, things like that. So definitely something worth looking into if you don't have it. E-sourcing is another piece. There's been a lot of leaps and bounds made in this field over the last few years. But the e-sourcing, what we're looking for is the automated vendor registration. Can they go in, add their information? Can they add the commodity codes, things that will help them receive notifications that you have a new solicitation open? Also allows them to see status, upload information, documents, ask questions. Now, a lot of the software now, you can pull questions and provide answers right in the software. And then the automated bid tabulation. It's a smaller thing, but it provides a lot of visibility for audit purposes and open records requests, things like that. It's a good protection. It gives those vendors that submitted a good view that there was an open and honest process.
Yeah, as well as ensuring consistency in the evaluation process. If you've got an automated scorecard, then you've got a system that will set yourself up for being more consistent with your evaluations.
So why this is a best practice, it's another automation tool. It's fairly easy to use. There's a lot of options. It gives you your staff time to focus more on shoring up any missing items or details that might make the solicitation stronger, and gives you more time to evaluate instead of, I think we all remember the days where you got manila envelopes full of proposals that are hundreds of pages long, and the review process for that. So streamlining anything you can to give them time to effectively evaluate is positive.
Absolutely.
Some changes from the previous year. There weren't major changes, but we did switch 7A and B. So if you are utilizing some of your screenshots or information from the previous year to help build your application for this year, just know that those items have been flipped. So you'll need to submit them. You might need to update them and submit them in the correct location.
Yeah, I've divvied up my criteria into different members of my team. And so that's one of the things you really got to do is make sure that whatever team members are working on 7A and 7B, they need to understand that, okay, we're swapped. So 7B is now 7A and 7A is now 7B.
The criteria itself still remain the same, but I think the flow we felt was better this way. So
right.
And the other change, and this is the more major thing, probably what people are most excited about, is the AEP certified systems. Criteria 7 was lucky enough to get to be the first ones through the door on this, and we're excited because it's going to make the evaluation process much easier and smoother, quicker.
And submittal process.
Yeah, and submittal. Yeah, absolutely. So we have 2 systems that certified this year, Planet Bids and OpenGov. So if you utilize those systems in their entirety, you can, there's a new way to submit to show that you're, Brian, can you help me? Do they just
absolutely.
need the letter from the company?
Yes, so just a little history on this. We did this for a couple of reasons, and you guys touched on that. And one is and the most important is to allow for very much more concise submittals for the applicant. So there are a lot of e-procurement systems out there, but we find that there's a core group that a lot of agencies utilize. And as evaluators, we have to look through 20, 25 pages of screenshots to confirm that you're using all the components of the system. So we thought, well, maybe a better way is just to certify particular systems that they meet all those requirements. And then that allows the applicants at this point then to just to submit one page and verifying their use of the system. And that's all we need. So what we're looking for is a page that basically says, yes, we have this system. And yes, we are utilizing it to the capacity that meets all of these requirements. Now, with that being said, if you, let's say you use the system for electronic sourcing, but you don't use it for electronic evaluations, then we would assume that you would just say, we use it for electronic sourcing. Here's the screenshot. I mean, what we ask you to submit is one screenshot showing the main screen of the AEP certified system in use at your agency, and a statement certifying that your agency meets all the requirements of the criteria. So you would, if you meet both 7B and 7C utilizing that system, you would submit the same thing twice. If you only use it for electronic sourcing, or you only use it for electronic evaluation and automated scorecards, you would submit it just for that criterion. Again, a screenshot of the system that you're using, Planet Bids or OpenGov, and a statement saying, yes, we certify that we comply with the requirements of this criterion.
Perfect.
And one follow-up, and I see a couple of questions come in. First one from Matthias is, what are AEP certified systems? What does that mean? And are these the only two systems that are acceptable? What happens to other bidding systems? And all electronic systems are acceptable. The benefit of Planet Bids and OpenGovs is that you only have to submit that one page. For example, at my agency, we use Bonfire. So I would still go through the same process that I've done each year, show the appropriate screenshots of the bid postings, the tabulations, the scorecard, so on and so forth, and I would still meet the requirements of that criterion. But if you use Planet Bids or OpenGov, then you get to do the one pager saying that they do that.
And the reason there's the only two is that they are the ones, the first two that have been gone through the certification process. And so we've certified them. We have not worked with the other companies yet to certify their systems.
That is absolutely correct. And another point on that, the owners of the system themselves have to go through that application process, not the agencies. So it has to be initiated by Planet Bids, OpenGov. There's a question on Periscope, BidSync. Are they not AEP certified? They are not. At this point, we have had discussions with MDF Commerce that owns those systems, and a couple other eProcurement platforms. We're hoping to get more systems in the future, but the process has to be initiated by them, excuse me. What are the criteria for being an AEP certified system? I can tell you the criteria are all laid out on our webpage under the tab for AEP, and has a list of the requirements, but basically it's the same requirements as the criteria for 7B and 7C. We use Bid and Go that has met the requirements in the past, just have to submit more screenshots, that's all. Yeah, you would use the same process that you used in the past that you did to meet those. And just to clarify, we invited 15 to 20 different solutions to apply and be a part of this. And as of now, these are the only two that have responded. So I would recommend that everybody reach out to your reps and say, hey, we'd like you to become AEP certified. Can you, here's a link to the information. You can give them the email address that we use for AEP, which is aep@npiconnection.org. Again, all the information is on NPI's website.
Great, thank you. So first we have criteria 7A. And so, and really the reason we swapped 7A and 7B is because 7A deals with internal procurement, the requisition of PO process. 7B deals with electronic sourcing as well as 7C. So it just made sense to group them that way. And so in 7A, internal procurement automation deals with, again, requisition and PO process, the electronic rec process, then how are those recs approved electronically to then become or get converted to the actual purchase order. And then once that purchase order is created, the process of electronically forwarding that requisition to the vendor. And so each one of those items requires submittals so that can be verified. Brandon, do you have anything else to add to that one?
No, sir.
Okay, all right.
So like Philip said, 7B and 7C kind of go hand in hand, so it felt better to have them together. So electronic sourcing, we ask that you describe the system if you're not utilizing one of the approved certified programs. Describe the system, the location to it, and then showing screenshots showing the notification process, and then posting of a solicitation and a tabulation or scorecard. The one thing I would say to be careful of in this area is the solicitation dates. We do update the dates each year generally, and it has to be, and this goes for any criteria, just watch the dates. A lot of times people forget and they'll submit an old screenshot, or they'll pull something from last year that's completed, but a lot of things have to be done after January of that current year. So just keep an eye on that.
And just consider the person who's looking and evaluating your submission. It makes a lot more sense and it flows a lot easier when you're looking at the same solicitation. But if you're pulling a screenshot from a solicitation for a service, and then you've got a bid tab from a product solicitation, and then you've got an RFP versus a bid and different screenshots, it gets really confusing. And so when you're updating your documentation for the next year, or creating your documentation for that submittal, it's always best to try to keep the same solicitation so that it flows appropriately and is easier to understand.
Good point. The electronic evaluation and the automatic scorecard. So this one's more difficult because I know that some agencies have restrictions around what they can post and what has to be publicly available. But if you're allowed to post those things, if you post it publicly and provide the link to it, that covers.
Brandon, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt. So that is actually on 7B, the posting of the tabulation of the scorecard. So that's one of the criteria in 7B, is kind of to finish out that posting of the solicitation and getting that out there. And again, as Brandon said, sometimes that can be a challenge for your entity if you may have processes or procedures or requirements that don't allow you to publicly post things. That's why we allowed the scorecard. So you're not actually putting pricing out there, but you may put the scorecard on how the vendors were evaluated. We use that in our entity since pricing tended to be an issue in terms of publicly posting that. So we went to a scorecard posting so that vendors can see how they were evaluated against each other. And then 7C, I know, Brandon, you were going to go into this. This is in the evaluation of your own solicitation submittals. This is a automated evaluation process. So meaning your system has the ability to create its own your scorecards, right? Create your own scorecards for that solicitation, and they automatically go out to your evaluation team. Your evaluation team is able to evaluate those scorecards and put their own scores. And then once they score it, it then consolidates into a consolidated scorecard. And so that's kind of a newer part of e-sourcing tools. And obviously with the AEP award wanting to be kind of addressing the newest technology that's out there. I know some have these for a couple of years already, but that's now 7C, and we've only had that out there a couple of years now, I think, for evaluation. And
And
again,
just to throw another piece of information in there, Philip and Brandon, thank you. In 7C, the scorecards do not have to be posted online. It is just the system generated scorecards, the automated online electronic scoring of those. But the scorecards do have to capture the information of the individual scores, notes, and then have a summary scorecard. And then back to 7B on the bid information, the solicitation information, and the results. If you're doing a bid, it would be a bid tabulation. If you're doing an RFP, you could post the ranking of the respondents as the information. And so you don't actually have to physically post their scores, their scorecards, if that makes sense.
and then again in 7C, we have the ability to for you to justify using or show evidence of using Planet Bids or OpenGov as opposed to submitting all the screenshots, since they with them being certified. All right, Brandon, I think we can jump out now if you want to show some model submittals for these criteria.
Sir. So first one is 7A, electronic sourcing. This
Which
is
is
when
actually 7B this year.
good. Yeah, thank you. Good call out. So the thing that was nice about this that we appreciated is the layout. It's very easy to read. Everything transitions nicely through the process. They have very clear screenshots. But this goes through the process, tells you where the vendor needs to go to register. And they call out the specific locations in each screenshot. So through vendor location. So register here. The vendor enters their information, completes it here. They can register their NIGP codes so that they're notified if a solicitation's issued.
And it's just really effective at how they're pointing to the screen or the area on the screen that's important for the reviewer. The easier it is for the reviewer to see what you want us to see, the easier it is for us to give you points to credit for, answering the criterion.
Yeah, and any notes that you might have, if there's like a subset of data that, interacts with something, or if they've got to punch out to something else to deal with it, just helping somebody understand the process of the work. So
Yep.
One thing to watch is screenshots. A lot of times, if they're too large, they'll get turned or they'll be upside down. So, and then the clarity of them, if you could take a pretty high quality screenshot, that helps, especially when we're looking to make sure the solicitation's the same number. Some of the document numbers get a little tough to read.
Especially on hour 6 of reviewing these.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's where the vendor can go in and download a solicitation document. Invitation to bid. The nice thing too is the screenshots are most helpful because it gives you the direct information right at hand. But we have had instances where we've had follow-up questions or we really wanted to verify something. And so having the web address as well, or if a screenshot just is grainy or hard to read, having the web address helps just for a backup. And then here's where they've got their award tabulations. See, vendor can go in there and see when it was awarded. And then the award notice to the vendor. There's a copy of it downloaded. So,
And is that the bid tabulation there?
yeah, bid tabulation.
Yeah. And so as you can see, this is how many slides is that? I can't, 16,
19.
19 pages of screenshots. So again, if they were a certified e-sourcing vendor, then all you'd have is a 1-page document as opposed to the 19 pages, which makes it really nice and easy.
Yeah. (7B), San Diego Housing Commission. Same thing, very clear what they're applying for. And as Philip called out earlier, this will be 7A now. So this is the purchase order requisition process. So they walk through the short narrative of the order and processing in the system. And then they'll walk us through how they get from requisition to purchase order. Approval process. Here's a list of approvers and how they approved. So it shows the automated process.
And these model submittals are available to members, NPI members on the NPI website.
Yeah, under the members only tab.
Right after you log in.
Yeah. And then here's the resulting PO converted over from a requisition. And then the notification to the vendor sending the PO number. And the proof of the notification that it was sent. So, but this is a model submittal and it's 5 pages. So you can streamline it pretty well if you want, as long as you're hitting all the boxes. So we've seen some that were 3 and 4 pages, and we've seen some 20, 30 page, and both were good submittals. Just a matter of what your process is. Some people's process is maybe a little more involved. Maybe there's a few more approval steps or something that you're trying to highlight, but it can be done both ways.
But if you can do it in 5 pages, we prefer 5 pages.
Yeah. That doesn't hurt our feelings, that's for sure. And now 7C, Frisco. And like Philip said, 1 page would be done, which would be fantastic if you utilize one of those systems. So deadline, portal. So this one's showing a closed one. Here's the reviewer list, the criteria that they're having to wait on, the automated notifications. Then here's the automated scorecard. And like Philip said, these are nice because you're not giving away vendors' pricing. You can protect some of the information that's a little more sensitive, but you can look at the individual reviewers or the master. Even comments from the reviewers, so that if you have a protest, you have some documentation of why one stood out or maybe didn't do as well as they thought they would. So there's a final score summary. So this one was about 9 pages that captured the process for us. So, but again, very clean, very easy to read, organized. So, and here's when you're logged in, members only AEP model submittals, and they have some for every criteria. So you can go through, and we usually have 2 to 6 or 8 on each criteria. That one's an exception, but so it gives you some different options. Different people submit in different ways, different lengths.
Mhm.
So
Great.
well, we appreciate you guys. Do you have any questions for us?
We had quite a few questions in chat. Been trying to answer those. But we will open it up again at the end for additional questions. I know there's some new information here, so thank you, Philip and Brandon, for that presentation. We're going to move on now to Criterion 16, and that's going to be presented by April Pate and Blake Skiles.
All right. Are the slides up? Can everybody see them?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, this is criteria 16, which is cooperative procurement strategy. And first thing we're going to do is just go over a summary of what the criteria is about. So criteria 16 is used to demonstrate that the agency has implemented a comprehensive cooperative procurement strategy. And we ask you to submit a narrative identifying your agency's strategy for the use of cooperative procurement. And that submission needs to include a complete narrative and at least 2 separate components that demonstrate the agency's strategic approach to their use of cooperative procurement. A few examples that we look for those 2 components are a formal checklist or questions that you use to evaluate a cooperative procurement program, the vendor or the contracting opportunity, the methodology of determining what contracts you will solicit or consider for a cooperative contract, serving as a lead agency for a cooperative or joint procurement contract, and we ask you to provide documentation from the solicitation as well as names of the agencies that use that contract and proof that they used that contract, and we'll show some examples in our model submittals. Serving as a lead agency for a cooperative organization such as Nashville Value Point, Omnia, NCPA, Sourcewell, or others. And again, documentation from the solicitation confirming that the award is done. Procurement staff attendance at training sessions or webinars related to cooperative procurement. And we ask for a list of training and the attendees. And documentation indicating percentage of total annual spend utilizing cooperative purchasing options. And that data needs to be from the most recently completed fiscal year and compared to a prior year or multiple prior years for evaluation. It's important to remember that just having a cooperative procurement policy or an approval to use co-ops does not necessarily meet the intent of this criterion unless it is supported by 2 or more of the examples here. And again, these are just examples. If you have other ways to support your use of cooperative contracts, we will review those.
Like, I'd like to point out a couple of pitfalls that we've seen with some of the examples, or some of the documentation that people have provided for some of the examples that are on your screen. The first 2 bullets are usually pretty easy to obtain, and people that use those examples in their application are usually pretty successful. The 3rd bullet, when you're serving as a lead agency for a cooperative procurement or contract award, a lot of the time, the deficiencies that we see in applications are that there is no evidence that the other agencies actually used the award. And that's unfortunate. It's actually happened to our agency where we do a lot of work to solicit bids on behalf of multiple agencies, and then the other agencies decide to ignore that solicitation and do something else. But unfortunately, that doesn't meet this example as one of the methods of cooperative purchasing. The other one for serving as a lead agency for the cooperative organizations, those are usually pretty clean. Either the thing gets awarded or it doesn't. And so that's not too bad. Procurement staff attendance at training sessions. We have seen deficiencies in some applications where the agency provided training to departments or other parties on the use of cooperatives. And unfortunately, that doesn't meet the intent of that example. It means that your own staff is either improving or enhancing their understanding of cooperatives by attending training themselves. And then the last bullet there, sometimes we see applications that include data on cooperative purchasing in the current fiscal year or the most recently completed fiscal year without a comparison to the prior year. So again, you have to have a comparison of at least 2 fiscal years if you're going to use that as a demonstration of your cooperative program. Thank you, Blake.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we have those, we have some do's and don'ts on the next 2 slides that kind of go over that again. So do be sure to include the narrative and 2 items to support your strategy. And then again, if you're the lead agency in a solicitation, please be sure to include that proof that at least one other agency used the contract. And again, you'll see that in our model submittals. And if you're providing the metrics, include that 2-year comparison. You do not have to include your entire cooperative strategy in the narrative. Your strategy can be a separate component, so the narrative is just a summary, and then your strategy would be one of those 2 components we're looking for. You don't have to include your policy that encourages or permits the use of cooperative purchasing. Again, it doesn't qualify because it still needs to be backed up by 2 of those examples, so we don't necessarily need to see the policy. And just like April had just said, don't include any training you provided to non-procurement staff about the use of cooperative procurements. We need to see the training that was actually attended by your staff. So I will pull up a couple of model submittals. So this is the first one we're looking at here, and you'll see the narrative, and then we have a bulleted list down here of the supporting documentation that they've provided. So the first method they're using is their checklist for evaluating cooperative contract, and they've indicated that here and provided the checklist. And then next they're showing that they were the lead agency. So you have the solicitation date and what the solicitation was for and what other entities are participating in the solicitation. And they've pointed that out along with the description. They've pointed out the language within the solicitation that allows other agencies to utilize the contract. The bid form, an area showing estimated usage for not only themselves, but the other agencies that they listed. And then here is their proof that other agencies have used it. So they've shown a purchase order here where they've ordered off of the contract themselves, and then purchase orders from other agencies that have utilized the contract as well. And they've pointed out to us that the contract number shows on each of these purchase orders. April, is there anything you want to point out on this one?
With regard to their checklist, you'll notice that it's very clean and obvious. Your checklist can be different than that. It doesn't have to be identical. So if you are submitting a checklist as part of your application, just make sure that, we're not going to evaluate the merits of each of the questions. It can be whatever's meaningful to your own agency. And then again, as Blake pointed out, what makes this submittal a model submittal for the cooperative solicitation is that they included clear evidence that not only were the other agencies mentioned within the solicitation, but they actually used it, that they actually awarded a contract or a purchase order from that solicitation.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things we see is that we get multiple examples of people that have posted solicitations and they have that cooperative language in there, but then they do not give us the actual proof that other agencies have utilized that contract. Another model submittal. Again, we have a narrative and a list of what they're providing for. So here's another example of a cooperative checklist. And then this one is the total annual spend. And you'll see here that they have multiple fiscal years with a percentage comparison there at the bottom. And we don't necessarily need to see an increase year over year. We just need to see a comparison year over year.
Yeah, again, it's a really clean and straightforward submittal. Realizing that the clearer your documentation is, the easier it is for us to evaluate it. And so I think the theme with all of the submittals you've seen today is that the screenshots are clear. If there's an area of the page that they need you to notice in order to prove that they're qualified, they've either highlighted it, outlined it, used an arrow or what have you. And so that's pretty important when we're reviewing, a couple of hundred submittals over the period of many hours. It just makes it a whole lot easier. So readability is really important.
That was our presentation and our model submittals.
All right.
Questions?
Thank you, April. Thank you, Blake. Really appreciate that. Been trying to cover all the questions in the chat, but let's go ahead and open it up. You can, let's stay specifically on this criterion, criterion 16. So if there are any more questions, you can throw those in the chat or you can open up your mic and ask those. All right, I don't see any at this point, so let's go ahead and open it up to all questions. And that could be specifically on the criteria that we have covered today or any of the criteria. We have quite a few members of the evaluation team with us today, so we should be able to answer any and all questions that you may have. So chat or unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Wow, you're really going to test us, Brian, aren't you?
I am. Or if there were any questions that I missed in the chat, go ahead and ask those again. Well, I am not seeing any. Here we go. For 7A, is it okay if the screenshots are a little older? Same process, nothing has changed. The screenshots on 7A are dated. So you want to make sure that whatever screenshots you have fall into the date requirements of 7A or any of the criteria, for example. For this one, the requisition and PO must have been created on or after January 1st, 2023. So if it meets those dates, that date criteria, then go ahead and submit. You can submit something that you did last year if last year's was still in the range of dates.
And while we're talking about that one, we've seen some submittals where entities have uploaded their training guide on how a requisition is to be input, and completely unnecessary. That's 30 pages of screenshots and how to walk people step by step through a new requisition or how to input a rec. So not necessary, just the screenshots that pertain to the bullets that are indicated on that criterion are needed.
And I would touch on the dates. I think the reason it seems weird to have to require new dates if, like to what you said, that you're still using the same process. We've been using the same software since 2007. But we hope that you're still using it and that maybe you're making it a little better. You're refreshing the automation, you're pushing the boundaries of what the software can do. So that's why we ask for new dates, to make sure that you're still utilizing it effectively and that it's still a current practice. So.
All right, any other questions? All right, not seeing or hearing from anybody, we'll go ahead and close down the educational series for today. Just a couple quick reminders. We did record this session. It will be posted to our website within the next day or two, and it'll be the same place that you're registered for these classes, so you'll be able to find that. And if you missed one of the first two seminars, go ahead and download those recordings because they are currently posted as well. We touched a lot on model submittals today, and just a reminder, model submittals are available for NPI members. If you are not an NPI member, please consider joining. You'll get access to those model submittals, and in addition, you'll get a $200 discount on the AEP application fee. Membership is only $130, so you're going to save $70 right there, along with other benefits and discounts on our annual conference. Thank you again, everybody, for attending. Feel free to join us for our last of the 4 in the educational series on April 25th. Same time, same bat channel, where we'll do wrap up and any answers for any remaining questions on the entire process and application. All right, thank you all, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody.
Yes.